Hello and welcome to Narayana IS. I am Pratik, your faculty for Daily News Analysis. Students, as part of Daily News Analysis, we shall be discussing 5 topics from the Hindu and the Indian Express. So let's have a quick glance of the 5 topics to be discussed in today's session. The first topic is taken from Hindu page number 10. Now this article discusses the AMRUT scheme, right? The article tries to discuss the features of the AMRUT scheme, the challenges associated with the scheme and the way forward or the recommendations. The second article is taken from Indian Express page number 10. Now this article tries to highlight the double standards of American foreign policy in relation to Israel, Palestine and Russian-Ukraine war. The third article is taken from Indian Express page number 13. Now this article tries to highlight that how because of the disruptions to the normal shipping routes, the environment gets impacted. For example, if there is a disruption at the Suez Canal, then it leads to the ships taking longer routes, leading to more greenhouse gas emissions, right? The fourth article is taken from Hindu page number 3. Now this is pertaining to a ruling of the Madras High Court which allowed the wife of a comatose man to sell or mortgage his properties, immovable properties. The fifth article is taken from Indian Express page number 12. Now here the Asian Development Bank has committed to lend around $2.6 billion to the Indian government projects. These are the 5 topics that we shall be discussing in today's session, and finally we shall be discussing questions so that you understand the type of questions that can be expected in the UPSC examination. So students, let's get started. Students, the title of the next topic is AMRUT scheme. Now in this article you need to understand AMRUT scheme, the characteristics, challenges and way forward. Again, you can map this under GS paper 2. So in 2019 UPSC had asked this question. So please go through the question and try to answer the question. Let's try to understand the context. There are few facts, data given. Let's go through this facts. Now around 36% of India's population lives in cities. By 2047, this figure is expected to cross 50%. The World Bank estimates that $840 billion will be required to fund the basic urban infrastructure over the next 15 years. $840 billion. Now, AMRUT scheme. What is AMRUT scheme? Atal Mission for Rejuvenation for Urban Transformation. So, this is a mission for transforming the urban landscape. There were 2 phases of this scheme. One was launched in 2015. The second one was launched in the year 2021. So, let's try to understand more features about the AMRUT scheme. Now, the objective of the AMRUT scheme was to ensure every household has access to a tap with assured water supply and a sewerage connection. 1. To increase the value of cities by developing greenery and well-maintained open spaces such as parks. Third, to reduce the pollution by switching to urban public transport by constructing facilities for non-motorized transport. These are the objectives of AMRUT scheme, self-explanatory. Now, in the initial phase, which was launched in the year 2015, around 500 cities and towns were selected and the total layout was 50,000 crore. Total outlay was 50,000 crore meant for 5 years. Now, the second phase, which was started in the year 2021, here the total outlay is 2,99,000 crore. Objective being to make cities water secure by having a functional water tap connections to all the households. They have set the ambitious target like 100% sewerage management in all the 500 cities selected under AMRUT. Now, so far as on May 19, 2024, only 83,000 crore has been dispersed. 1. Second, around 59 lakh tap connections have been installed and around 38 lakh sewerage connections have been provided. Around 2,500 parks were developed and around 63 lakh LED lights were replaced under the AMRUT scheme. So, these are few facts. Don't try to mug up all the facts. Remember 1 to 2 facts, that's it. But most important is to understand the issues. So, when you get a question on this particular scheme, try to remember few objectives followed by issues. Like, for example, around 2 lakh people die every year because of inadequate water, sanitation and health. This is one problem. Then the second is in 2016 disease burden due to unsafe water and sanitation per person was 40 times higher in India than in China. This situation has not improved significantly. Second problem. Third, the 150 reservoirs which are monitored by the central government, the capacity of these reservoirs is only 40%, which is way too less. Fourth, around 21 major cities are expected to run out of groundwater. Next, Niti Aayog stated that 40% of India's population will have no drinking water access by 2030. This is such an alarming number. Nearly 31% of urban households lack pipe water. 68 are not connected to a pipe sewerage system, and the average water supply per person is around 70 liters per day. The required should be 135 liters. Talking about the air quality, now air dimension or air quality does not come under AMRUT scheme. That's the reason the government had introduced National Clean Air Program in the year 2019. Why? Because this was not covered under AMRUT scheme. Now, if we try to analyze the scheme, we can observe few things. One, the scheme was project oriented. To deal with the urban issues, we need to have a holistic approach, but unfortunately, this scheme is only project oriented. One. Second, AMRUT was implemented with no participation from the cities. Now, here we are transforming the urban places, but the participation from the cities is almost nil. Why? Because the government or the central government lacked or did not involve the urban local bodies like the municipal corporation, municipal council, etc. The scheme was controlled by bureaucrats, the parastatals, like that is the government bodies, and large technology, yani ki private based companies. Now, the way the scheme was devised, it violates the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, which constitutionalized urban local bodies like municipalities and municipal corporations. Again, local factors were ignored like climate change, rainfall patterns, existing infrastructure. Many sewage treatment plants are inefficiently designed. Next, the real estate development. It is largely developed by the private players, leading to, now as the private players are developing the real estate projects, it's leading to disappearance of water bodies, disrupted stormwater flows, and lack of stormwater drainage. So, these are some of the issues. What can be the way forward or solution which will help you to write the means answer? Now, here the planning has to be holistic, which means that the planning has to be integrated. That is, we have to integrate water management, sanitation, mobility, and pollution control into a unified strategy. We cannot deal with these issues in silos. We have to have a unified approach. We have to consider local factors like the local climate, geography, and existing infrastructure to enhance the efficiency and sustainability. Second is, we have to empower the local bodies. We have to empower the members from the municipal corporation, councils, district, etc. That is, we have to abide by the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act norms, right? So, involving people is very, very important to ensure that the outcome is efficient. Next, nature based and sustainable solutions. That is, the solution should be nature based, like rainwater harvesting, wetlands restoration, and green infrastructure. We have to enhance urban greenery and protect natural water bodies which acts as resilience to climate change. Then we have to focus on governance. We have to ensure that the governance is transparent and accountable. Alright, for that there has to be collaboration between government agencies, private sector, and civil society, so that resources could be better mobilized for better implementation. And last is, we have to ensure on building the capacity of the people or officials who are a part of the urban local bodies. Again, we have to use advanced technologies like artificial intelligence and different technology, or we have to foster innovation so that solutions which are nature friendly can be innovated, right? So, this is how we need to focus on urban management and urban planning. I hope students you understood the article. Students, the title of the topic is The End of Unipolarity. Now, in this article, you need to understand unipolarity, multiple order, international rules based order. So these are the few terms that you need to understand in this article, and the overall geopolitics and how it is transforming. Again, you can map this topic under GS paper 2. So in context of the Russia and Ukraine war, there was a question asked in ethics paper, GS paper 4. So this is a question, very interesting question. Based on the topic, you have to write a note on constitutional morality, conflict of interest, probity in public life, challenges of digitalization and devotion of duty. So this is how you need to, or type of questions that can be asked in the UPSC examination. So let's start with the context. Now here, the critics of Joe Biden administration, they are criticizing America for playing double standard. And what double standard? In relation with the Israel-Palestine war and the Russia-Ukraine war. So in the Russia-Ukraine war, the US is siding with the victim, that is Ukraine. And in the Israel-Palestine war, USA is siding with aggressor, that is Israel. This is the double standard, and the critics are criticizing this policy of Americans. Now, the point is that the Americans are treating or dealing with both the issues in a very similar set of manner. And what is that? In both the cases, the Americans have opted for war instead of negotiation. So here, they are opting for war instead of negotiation, which means they are encouraging their Western partners to supply Ukraine and Israel with weapons. But despite the fact that the war has been ongoing since so many months, the war has reached to a stalemate, which means there is no outcome, which means the outcome or the objective that Ukraine, or for that matter Israel, have through the military means, they are not able to achieve that objective. And this double standards is reflecting the changing international order and its possible future, right? This is the context. I hope you understood the context. Now we'll understand the radical insufficiency in political categories. Now, the war in Ukraine and Gaza, it highlights the inadvocacy of traditional political narratives. And what is it? For example, if you see that the narratives about the Russian imperialism, that Russia is trying to acquire the territories of other countries, right? Now, this narrative is countered about how Ukraine is trying to ally with the NATO powers to defeat Moscow. One. The other being the way the Hamas is supporting Iran in order to fight against, let's say, Israel. Now, this is countered by Israel politics of apartheid and settler colonialism, that is, Israel is trying to occupy the lands in West Bank region, which was given to the Palestinians by the United Nations in the year 1947. So, this is how you see that the political narratives are being countered by other versions, right? But if you see in this wars, the accusations of genocide is abound on all the sides. But none of these storylines, that is the political narratives, are able to capture the complexities of the war. That is why the war is unfolding, or why is USA trying to help Israel, the aggressor, and in the Russia-Ukraine war, they're trying to help Ukraine, right? So, this is how the political categories or the way the political narratives are set is insufficient to explain the ongoing tensions. Let's try to understand United States globalization strategy. Now, USA has chosen to globalize these conflicts. That is, they are trying to mobilize the international support for Ukraine and Israel. Why? They are trying to mobilize or globalize this conflict so as to prevent the spread of war. This is the reason they are trying to globalize the conflict so that they get the international support. Now, here you see that the Russia's invasion and the Hamas attack focus on their regional dimensions, which means the international players who are supporting USA or against USA, right? They are seeing these attacks, that is Russia, Ukraine and Israel, Palestine, as the regional problems or border problems as opposed to the global problems. For example, the Minsk Agreement and Abraham Accord. Now, what is this Minsk Agreement? Now, this agreement was an agreement signed between the Ukrainian forces and the Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine to solve the eastern Ukraine problem. And Abraham Accord was an initiative wherein the relations between Israel and the Arab world The accord was trying to normalize the relation between Israel and the Arab world. Now, these agreements have lost the importance because of the ongoing war. Now, the world's divided responses with respect to these two wars have consolidated their regional character, which means more and more people are believing that these conflicts are regional in nature. Only the West support of one party or another threatens to turn each into a global conflict, which means taking sides without understanding the nature of war or without understanding the basis. Just supporting one country or the other is going to actually turn this into a global conflict. Now, neutrality. Now, many countries, including US and Western allies, they refuse to fully align with American position. For example, Turkey, it remains a part of NATO. It sells drones to Ukraine as what the USA is suggesting its allies to do, but it is refusing to sanction Russia. It is opposing Israel's war in Gaza. This neutrality of the countries who are supporting or against USA, it is actually reintroducing geopolitical balance, which is actually important to reduce the war's potential for expansion and reinforcing their regional character. And that's the reason the author tries to say that Ukraine and Israel must now accommodate a new regional order, which means we have to change from the current geopolitics or the world order. The Abraham Accord, it aimed to establish a regional order in which Israel will be at the center. But now this regionalization, right, is now being challenged because of the unipolar international order in which America operates in the or center. Which means here the author tries to say that now, as opposed to the unipolar world order where America used to dominate, the regional factor or regionalism is trending or is in vogue or is what we are experiencing. The decline of unipolarity where America is at the center. The absence of a US rival. There is no US rival. In the Cold War, USA had a rival in the form of USSR. Now, this absence of US rival has regionalized geopolitics by removing the possibility of great power competition. Now, there won't be any great power competition as we got to see during the Cold War era. This is what is mentioned over here. Middle powers like China, Russia, India, Brazil, they operate within the regional arenas, which means they cannot exert their power beyond the region. So, these countries, they do not aspire to replace the US. None of the countries trying to replace US, but they are trying to circumvent its power. That is, they are trying to maintain strategic autonomy. Threat from globalization. Now, the real threat to US unipolarity comes from the collapse of global politics in favor of regionalization, which means a regional based world order rather than unipolar world order. The economic and technological relations have moved beyond state control, which means the sanctions that the USA has imposed on Russia or for that matter Iran has no meaning or has no substance. Why? Because these things have moved beyond states control. And the USA, how is trying to counter it? By re-globalizing it by supporting the wars in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. However, this strategy of US to re-globalize is failing because of the collapse of the US hegemony and its global role in the international order. So, what is the future of the international order then? The regionalization, as I told you, that we are moving away from the unipolarity towards the regionalization of politics. So, this does not promise more peace than the global one, which the author tries to say that just that we are moving from unipolar world order to regional world order doesn't mean that it's going to promise any peace. The fragmentation of the United Nations led order in the after the 1991, that is after the end of Cold War, and the unworkability of a unilaterally imposed rules based international order require a new balance of power. So, the failure of United Nations or failure of the current international order, which means we need a new balance of power, and the US, the author is trying to say that as US is the most powerful country, must create an international order founded on the balance of power, which means no country should feel threatened, right? It should create balance of power among the regions and middle powers defining the geopolitics today like India, China, Russia, etc. So, in the conclusion, the author tries to say that the current ongoing war, it reveals a significant shift in the international order, especially the US approach, right? The ongoing developments, the author is trying to suggest that it seems that the unipolarity is declining. And as a reason, it is very important that the world order has to adapt to the realities of the multipolar world order, where the regional powers are actually defining the politics, right? So, this is the article. I hope students have understood this particular article. Students, the title of the next topic is Global Trade Disruptions Leading to Rising Temperatures, right? Now, in this context, you need to understand the concept of global warming. You can map this under GS paper 3. This was a previous year question, so please go through the question. Now, here the United Nations Convention on Trade and Development, UNTAD, has highlighted that the significant environmental impact of the ongoing global trade disruptions. Now, because of the disruptions on the major shipping routes, the environment gets impacted. This is the context. How? We'll try to understand. Now, this crisis began when the Yemen's Houthi rebels targeted the Suez Canal. Right? I'll just try to show you with the help of an diagram. Now, this is Suez Canal. Now, the one in red dotted line indicates a shipping route. Usually, the ships take this route through the Suez Canal. Now, here the Yemen Houthi rebels started targeting the ships, due to which the ships had to take this long route. It takes more time, more energy, and more emission of greenhouse gases, which impacts the environment. This is what the article is trying to highlight. Now, over 600 vessels had to be rerouted through the Cape of Good Hope because of the attack on the Suez Canal. Around 600 vessels had to be rerouted. So, instead of going through this route, they had to go through this route. So, again, these are some facts given. You can please go through it. I hope you understood the overall picture. Now, the article tries to highlight that because of the longer route, 38% more carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere, which is leading to, again, climate change. Ships are spending more time at sea, which means they are releasing more and more number of greenhouse gases. So, the world is facing concurrent disruptions in two major maritime trade routes. One is the Red Sea and the second one is Black Sea. So, here you get to see that this is the Black Sea, this is the Black Sea, this is the Caspian Sea, and this is the Red Sea. So, the article tries to highlight that because of the disruptions in the Black Sea and the Red Sea, the ships have to reroute their network or route, right? So, please try to identify these locations in your atlas map. So, I hope students, this was the article, or this was the essence of the article, and you have understood the overall article. So, again, it's saying that because of this disruptions, there's implication on inflation, food and energy security globally. I hope students you understood the article. Students, the title of the next topic is Wife Can Sell Assets of Husband in Comatose Conditions, right? In this context, you need to understand what do you mean by comatose condition, that is vegetative state, which is also known as then different types of FRITs, right? You can map this under GS paper 2 health. This was a question asked in the year 2022 about the Indian judiciary, the Supreme Court and the High Court, right? So, please go through the question. Now, the Madras High Court has allowed the wife of a comatose man, that is her husband, that this wife can now sell or mortgage the property of her comatose husband, right? Now, why? Because she wanted to sell or mortgage to manage the medical expenses and family maintenance, right? This is the context. Now, comatose, which means a man who is unconscious, which means he is alive, but he is not responding to the external stimulus. This is what you mean by comatose man. In short, you can say coma. Now, this petition was filed by S. Sasikala of Chennai to appoint her as the guardian of her husband, which means her husband Siva Kumar is under vegetative state, that is his comatose, right? Which means this lady had signed writ petition in the Supreme Court. Now, in this context, students, though there is nothing much in this article, but in this context, you need to understand the concept of writs in the Indian judiciary. Now, Under Article 32, Supreme Court can issue writs. Under Article 226, High Courts can also issue writs, which means as of now only Supreme Court and High Court can issue writs. Parliament can empower other courts to issue writs. As of now only Supreme Court and High Court issue writs. Until 1950, the High Courts of Calcutta, Bombay and Madras had the authority to issue writs, but now only the High Courts and the Supreme Court have the power to issue writs. Now, Supreme Court, what is the purpose of issuing writs? Why does the Supreme Court issue writs? To enforce fundamental rights. If the fundamental rights are violated of the citizens, you can go to the Supreme Court. You can file a writ petition in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has to, the jurisdiction being anywhere else in the territory of India, the jurisdiction of Supreme Court, right? Now, the Supreme Court cannot refuse. For example, if your fundamental rights are violated, you go to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court cannot refuse to hear your petition. This is the power that the Constitution has given the people, right? If I talk about the High Court, now when it comes to Supreme Court will only enforce fundamental rights under writ petition, but High Courts can issue both legal as well as fundamental rights. This is a difference that you need to understand. The High Court will issue writ petition within the territorial jurisdiction of the High Court. Now here, Supreme Court cannot refuse to entertain writ petition, but the High Courts have the power to refuse issuing the writ petition under Article 226. This is the difference which can be asked in the pre-examination. These are the different types of writs. Habeas corpus, when let's say for example any person is detained illegally, then the representative of that person can file habeas corpus writ in the Supreme Court or High Court. It can be issued against public authorities and private individuals. It cannot be issued where the detention is lawful. A person has committed a crime. Now, the law allows the police to arrest a person. You cannot file a petition. Mandamus, which means when the court, Supreme Court and High Court is ordering a public authority to perform as, let's say, a bureaucrat, an IS officer. So, under mandamus, the Supreme Court can direct the public official. Now, this can be issued against public body, corporation, right, then inferior court or tribunal. It cannot be issued against private body. Quo warranto, that is, commands a person to vacate an unlawful held office. Let's say, for example, a person is occupying the Rashtrapati Bhavan. So, person can file a quo warranto petition, which means by what authority are you occupying the Rashtrapati Bhavan? It can be issued only against statutory and constitutional public office. It cannot be issued against a ministerial or a private office. Prohibition. Here, a higher court is prohibiting a lower court from proceeding on a case, which means the Supreme Court or let's say High Court. The High Court is directing an order to the district court that please do not proceed with the case. This is prohibition. Can be issued against and cannot be issued against these things. Certiorari. Here, the higher court is telling the lower court, please do not hear the case and transfer the case to us. So, Supreme Court is telling the High Court to transfer the case before Supreme Court. This is certiorari. So, these are the 5 different types of writs. Now, here, the division bench of the Supreme Court had referred to a similar case heard by the Kerala High Court. In such case, the Kerala High Court had invoked writ jurisdiction, which is similar to a parens patriae jurisdiction. Now, what is this parens patriae jurisdiction? Which means, now this is very important for you to understand for your pre-examination, where the Indian courts will act as guardian for those who are unable to take care of themselves. So, for the people who do not have guardians, here the Indian courts will act as guardians. This is known as parens patriae jurisdiction. Very, very important in the prelims examination. Now, this decision of the Madras High Court has set a precedent for handling the assets of individual in a vegetative state. There is no law. In the absence of a law, this decision of the Madras High Court will set a precedent or an example. I hope students you understood the article. Students, the title of the next topic is Asian Development Bank commits $2.6 billion in sovereign lending. So, in this topic, you need to understand the importance of the international institutions like ADB, the effects of liberalization on the economy. You can map this under GS paper 2 as well as GS paper 3. Now, this was a previous year question asked in the UPSC examination. The Fortaleza Declaration, recently seen news, is related to the affairs of, these are the 4 international institutions, right? So, the context is, as we discussed, that the ADB has committed to give or lend $2.6 billion to India. Now, what is sovereign lending? Which means government projects, which means the ADB is financing this amount to fund the government projects. Non-sovereign lending is non-government projects, that is the private projects. I hope you understood the difference between sovereign lending and non-sovereign lending. What's the purpose of the fund? Urban development. Then we discussed AMRUT scheme, right? Then the industrial corridor, power sector, climate resilience and connectivity, that is transportation. Let's try to know more about ADB because a question can be asked in the pre-examination. Now, this ADB was established in 1966. Headquarters is in Manila, that is Philippines. As of now, ADB has around 68 member countries. You do not have to remember the exact number, but you need to know that it's more than 50. It comprises 49 from the Asia Pacific region and 19 from outside the region, right? What is the mission? Mission is economic growth and cooperation in Asia Pacific region and the acceleration of economic development of developing countries, right? Now, usually students get confused between ADB, NDB and AIIB. So, this is ADB. We'll also understand about the AIIB, which is Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which was established in the year 2016, headquarters being in Beijing, that is China, and the mission being to improve the social and economic outcomes in Asia. This is about only Asia. ADB is about Asia Pacific, and NDB was established in the year 2014. Now, this is an initiative of the BRICS regional organization. BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. Headquarters is in Shanghai. So, don't get confused between the headquarters of AIIB and NDB, right? The mission of NDB is to mobilize resources for infrastructure and sustainable development in the 5 countries of BRICS. So, this is NDB. I hope students have understood the article. Students, it's time to discuss few prelims practice questions and one mains based question. So, let's get started. The first statement is the writ of mandamus, different types of writs, can be issued against a public authority to compel performance of a statutory duty even if it involves a discretionary function. This is incorrect. The writ of certiorari is used to quash decisions of both judicial and quasi-judicial authorities but cannot be used against no, it can also be used against administrative authorities. Incorrect. Which means both are incorrect. Option D is the correct answer. Next is with respect to the changing international order. The US has chosen to globalize the efforts in Ukraine and Gaza to restrict their spread but has ended up dividing the world. Very true. This is what we discussed. The regionalization of geopolitics has diminished the possibility of great power competition, leading to a shift away from unipolarity. Exactly. This is exactly what was the change in international order. Middle powers like China, Russia, India, Brazil are capable of projecting military force globally beyond. No, this is incorrect. The Abraham Accord and the Minsk agreements continue to play a significant role in framing current policies. This is incorrect. So, we have discussed each of these points in the article. So, it's very easy to attempt these questions, right? So, C and D is third and fourth is incorrect, which means option E has to be the correct answer, right? Next question about UNC TAD. It was established in the year 1964. Yes. Second, it provides technical assistance and capacity building. No, this is incorrect. It doesn't provide technical assistance, right? So, this is incorrect. India is a member. Yes, India is a member of UNC TAD, right? Which means 1 and 3, option B has to be the correct answer. Next is about the ADB, Asian Development Bank, has committed more than 2 billion. Yes, this is correct. The primary purpose is to promote agriculture. No. This is not the primary purpose. The purpose is to just fund the sovereign projects, nothing to do with the agriculture development in particular. This is incorrect. ADB has its headquarters in Beijing. No, it's in Manila, Philippines. This is incorrect. So, option 1 is the correct answer. Only statement 1. Next is AIIB, was established in 16 and has headquarters in Beijing, China. Yes. The primary mission of AIIB is to improve social and economic outcomes in Asia by investing in. Very true. The NDB, former known as BRICS, was established in 14 and has its headquarters in Shanghai, China. Yes. The primary mission of NDB is to mobilize resources for infrastructure and sustainable development exclusively. So it's not exclusively for BRICS countries, right? They can also invest beyond these 5 countries, which means option C has to be the correct answer for question number 5. Now, means based question. Discuss the major challenges faced by AMRUT in achieving its objectives. Suggest a way forward, right? So again, in the introduction, you have to mention the AMRUT scheme, Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation. 2 phases, one 2015, the second one being 2021, and what is the objective of the AMRUT scheme, right? This is what you have to introduce in the introduction. Second, in the body, you have to mention the issues faced. For example, it is not a holistic approach, it is just a project based approach. Then there is absence of urban local body officials. There is no participation from the urban local bodies. Third, the governance is getting affected. Why? Because it is controlled by bureaucrats rather than it should be controlled by the urban local bodies. And then local factors like climate, geography is not taken into account. Then again, pollution like factors is also not a part of AMRUT scheme. Pollution has been kept outside the purview of AMRUT. So these are few issues that you can highlight. Then finally, in the way forward, you can mention that we need to have a integrated holistic approach wherein we can integrate transportation and other services, right? Then we have to empower the participation of the urban local bodies like corporation, and then we have to adopt nature based and sustainable solution like rainwater harvesting, etc. Then we have to focus on governance, that is the governance has to be transparent and accountable, right? And we have to focus on adopting innovative technologies to find solution, right? So this is how students have to write the answer for a means based question. I hope students have understood how to write an answer, and that's it from our daily news analysis session, students. I hope students have understood all the 5 topics. Please go through these topics and try to rehearse all these topics, try to understand, have a holistic understanding of these topics, right, students? So if you want our D&E session to be continued, please do like, share and subscribe to Narayan IAS. Thank you so much.